Yalada. This video is going to be about some general considerations for you to think about when you are engaging with Aboriginal people and or Torres Strait Islander people. I just want to say though that I don't identify as a Torres Strait Islander person, and so don't want to speak on behalf of Torres Strait Islander peoples, and I will share from my knowledge and my experience as a Guugi woman, first and foremost, but also I would like to keep whatever I share in a very broad and general sense. I do acknowledge the diversity and complexities of language groups, of culture, of country, and so I would want to preface this video by stating that there is no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to community engagement and cultural capability. So I wanted to create this video as a way of sharing some general considerations or hopefully helpful insights, particularly for leaders, whether you're leaders in your organisation, of your companies, of schools, of councils, government departments, whatever context. But if you are in roles of leadership, I'm hoping that this video will be valuable for you, that you'll be able to transfer some of this knowledge into your practice to hopefully refine good intention around your engagement and also align towards cultural responsiveness for Aboriginal peoples and Torres Strait Islander peoples. So the first recommendation that I have for you as a leader is that when you write or when you speak about Aboriginal peoples and or Torres Strait Islander peoples, it is important that you explicitly acknowledge that these are two distinct groups, not one homogenous group. And so by saying Aboriginal peoples and or Torres Strait Islander peoples, you are acknowledging the diversity and complexities that exist. If you're talking about students, the way that you can also use this is by saying Aboriginal students and or Torres Strait Islander students. If you're talking about communities, you would say Aboriginal communities and or Torres Strait Islander communities. So that word peoples, students, communities, for example, you can interchange, but it is also important that you ensure that that word is used after the word Aboriginal and after the word Torres Strait Islander, so that you can acknowledge that you are keeping both groups separate. So Aboriginal peoples and or Torres Strait Islander peoples. So the second recommendation that I have for you as a leader when engaging with Aboriginal peoples and or Torres Strait Islander peoples is that it's important that you use general vocabulary. Use words that are a bit more broad and general rather than pigeonholing definitive and conclusive language. For example, general words usually are may, they might, can, could, some, as opposed to words like is, will, should, does, all, the majority. Any of the language that kind of puts a blanket statement on the context that you're talking about makes a situation and what you're trying to articulate a little unsafe. So to keep the cultural safety at the forefront of what you're trying to share or talk about, use general words like may, might, could, can, some, because what you're doing is you're saying that there is diversity, there are complexities, there is a broader socio-historical, political context, a bigger picture, a second story perhaps, and you're not trying to put everyone in the same basket. So an example of this general vocabulary in use would be some Aboriginal peoples may or may not know their traditional language or languages. So by me saying some, it means that I'm not saying every Aboriginal person. I'm also using the word may or may not to say that I'm not making a definitive statement here. And by also saying language and languages, I'm also saying that an Aboriginal person or Aboriginal community may have one language or they might have multiple languages. So I'm, in every opportunity in a sentence, trying to frame the statement in a way that is broad and general to acknowledge and respect the diversity and complexities that exist. So another recommendation or insight that I have when it comes to community engagement and cultural capability is the use of the words such as our or their, or our versus their. So what I mean is, if you are a non-Indigenous person and you use the word our in a sentence to talk about First Nations peoples or Indigenous peoples, you might, for example, say, our First Nations peoples in our local area. What you've done by using the word our is you've denoted, or you've made the, you've sent the message of ownership over those people in community. So our First Nations people in this community, you as a non-Indigenous people have, by your words, said that you have ownership over those people. Whereas if you were to use the word there, it becomes a lot more safe, because you're acknowledging that they have the ownership to their country, to their histories, to their languages, to their culture. So a more safe way of saying that same thing would be the First Nations people of this community and their histories, languages and cultures. So just be very conscious of your word our versus the word the or their. So one more insight or consideration that I have when it comes to engaging with, talking about Aboriginal peoples and or Torres Strait Islander peoples is using open-ended and non-assuming questions and statements. So, for example, when you're talking about Dreamtime stories, rather than saying, can I use that Dreamtime story about that mountain in my classroom? That statement or that question is very much specific to a particular Dreamtime story that you're talking about. The conflicting possibility and issue about that is that if you're not meant to know about that Dreamtime story and you've just asked someone about that story, then you or the person that told you that story might get into big trouble. Want to get a growling? So the safer option would be to make that more broad, more general and open-ended by saying something more appropriate like, what are the appropriate Dreamtime stories that I may use in the context of my classroom? So you're not saying which dreaming story, you're not the one deciding that, but you're being positioned as the learner, and the community, the traditional owner, the traditional custodian, the elder, they are the ones with the knowledge who are going to inform you what is appropriate in your practice. So it's really important that you think about the way you frame your questions and frame your statements. So I have one final recommendation for this video before I close. And this is something that I've used time and time again in many contexts in my own community when I'm wanting to yarn with, mob, with family, with elders around particular or important topics, whether it's education, whether it's health, for example, or when I'm in another community on someone else's country. I also use this question to guide my process. So I use the question, who else should I be speaking to? Who else should I be speaking to is a very safe question, because it's saying that I'm the learner. I don't know the answer to it. It's open-ended, it's non-assuming, and community, or my own community and other representations of my own community, are the ones who are going to guide me. I'm not deciding the outcome. And so this is really effective, and this is what authentic consultation looks like, because I'm allowing someone else the authority to lead. And so who else should I be speaking to means that I might talk to that person next because I was recommended to talk to that person next. And then when I go and have that conversation with that person, I ask them, who else should I be speaking to? And then I go on to the next person. And then I ask that person again, who else should I be speaking to? And I apply that same question to nearly every interaction that I have, because I want to ensure that I am being comprehensive in my consultation around community, and I want to be guided by community in that. So I want to have those individual yarns, I want to have those small group yarns, and I also want to have that broad collective yarns. And at all stages of the consultation, I want to say, who else should I be speaking to? And so I feel very confident in recommending this as a strategy for you to use when it comes to working with Aboriginal peoples and or Torres Strait Islander peoples in whatever context you are in as a leader.
Yalada, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you could take a minute to subscribe to this channel, it would really help, and please do like and share if you find this content valuable.